All right, let's get moving, cracks knuckles. Okay, so welcome everybody to genetics this fall on Monday, Wednesday, Friday section. I'll be your spirit guide for this semester. Um, let's see, how do I put this up? Oh, that's how you do that. I'm still learning how to use Zoom. I used it all summer and part of last semester, and there's still things which uh, I'm learning how to do. Oh, you know what I want to do before I do anything else? I want to try this. Ooh, that's cool. All right, let's stop that. Sorry, that was just me playing around. Um, anyway, so I might use that in the future. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't had much time to play with it. So essentially, what I'm going to do today is give you an overview of the course, kind of how uh, you're going to be able to access it, how I do things as well. So this is now, I guess, my third online course or semester teaching online. So I've got a fair idea what works for me, and I think I have a fairly decent idea what works for students in general. So I'm going to just talk about that for a little bit, show you where you can find some of the material, where some of the stuff will be posted. I've got my lesson plan. This is like my poor man's iPad. Uh, so we'll go through, various things on there. So what I want to do first is kind of give you I don't know, a heads up, I guess, in the sense that this is a tough course, right? This is a course where I'm usually, pretty happy. I wouldn't say ecstatic, but pretty happy when I get two or three students with an A in a section, right? Typically, I get about 45, maybe 50% in a good semester who get a C or better, which, as most of you should know already, is a requirement for your biology major, which I believe most of you are here to do. And also it's a requirement for taking the next course in line, which typically is evolution, maybe microbiology. But either way, if you struggle to get a C here, then you kind of get hung up, right? And the reason for that is that it's not necessarily a gateway course, but it's more of a transition course, right? So this is really where you will be transitioning from kind of like the last vestiges of your pre-university life, whatever that may have been, either high school or a different career, perhaps time in the services, or maybe you've just had a break from education and you're coming back, right? So essentially the Gem Bio series was a way to kind of get your feet under the table, really, in terms of university life, and get you kind of into that kind of groove. But the material, even though it might not seem it at the time, was fairly straightforward. There's a lot of it, but it wasn't especially complicated. And genetics is kind of at the fulcrum between those two, right? So between, like the relatively straightforward Gem Bio series and some of the more complex upper division courses. Not really talking about evolution, which is more of a core course, even though that has a hell of a lot of math involved in it. But more like immunology, cell biology. Um, speak of my own upper division course of developmental biology as well, in that they are quite considerably more advanced than what you're learning here, right? So really my job is to kind of give you as it was with Gem Bio for the Gem Bio 1, for those of you who had me for that, was to really give you the skills that you need to be successful for the rest of your degree, right? And as such, and also you've got to learn some genetics, right? I mean, that's kind of part of the deal. And so there's a lot of stuff to cover. Some of the topics are fairly advanced. There's a bunch of math, which frankly terrifies most people, as it should. And it's just nonstop, right? So what I want to talk about first, before we get into like the, the nuts and bolts, I guess, of the course, is really some things that you need to be doing, right, in order to be successful. And I'll show you around some of the places in the process as well. So essentially, the course consists of, as you know, lab, right, which you'll be doing a mix of in person and not in person labs, and we'll talk about that in lab next week. For those that are in my sections, and Dr. Penny will do his for those that are in his section. There are a bunch of homeworks, and I'll point you to those in a second. And there are 4 exams, right? And those exams are tough. Oh, hello. And there are a few different ways that you can be successful, right, at this course. And this is through teaching this several times, and also teaching Gen Bio 1, ad nauseum in the first few years that I was here. And so let me share my screen with you. You get to see what my computer looks like, which can be either fascinating or terrifying. You don't want to see that. Let's get off that. That's why the National Science Foundation doesn't want to give me and my colleagues $500,000, which is rather rude of them. Anyway, so this is the course landing site, and where are they? Here they are. Eventually, 20% of your lecture part of the course, right? That's not the overall course grade, but the lecture part is these homeworks. So one way in which you can be successful and work towards getting that C is to do all of these, right? So these are essentially they largely correspond to the material that we're learning. They're sometimes a little out of sync, but not especially so. Their purpose is to get you familiar with the language, right? Because there's a lot of language involved in biology and genetics in particular. We have very specific words for specific things. To kind of keep you on top of the material, essentially, right? So they're kind of just a way of like whoosh, kind of whooshing you along. And also they have a really important role of, they're a great way to build your grade, right? So you can get, without too much difficulty, right, about 1/5 of your lecture grade just by doing these, right? So I do have what I think is a fairly reasonable one get out of jail card a semester. So if for whatever reason, I don't really mind what, you don't do one of these, I'll open up for you once, right? Because everybody, forget stuff every so often, or circumstances get in the way or whatever. But you don't want to be forgetting these on a regular basis. So one of the first things you should do, because these are basically, they're not free money, you have to earn it a little bit, but they're a lot easier way of gaining points than the exams. Stick these in your schedule. I'm going to show you. Get out of this. I don't know who's calling me right now. Probably some spam caller from China. Yeah. Oh no, it's a pharmacy. It keeps telling me they've got drugs for me. I don't want no drugs. Anyway, so this is like, I've got everything in my calendar. I've got a terrible memory. My wife's often like, what did we eat yesterday? I can't remember. So I put everything in here, right? I even put, this is a little silly, but I even put the classes that I have in here so I don't forget. I get a little reminder pop up saying, you should be teaching genetics soon. It's like, hey, thank you, Outlook. And I've got them all in here, right? So this is just how I remember stuff. So whatever system you use, and I don't really care what you use, put these into your schedule, right? Put the deadlines. If you go to the crap, which one is it? Here we go. Go to the syllabus section in Blackboard. You can download this, which is a good idea. And that will tell you when all of these things are due, right? So after you get off of here, before go, that was miserable, put these into your schedule, right? Along with other important dates like first exam, things like that, which you probably don't want to be thinking about right now, but it's going to happen sooner or later. Right, so that's one part of it, right? And part of the reason for doing that is because I want you to get really rigorous about how you plan your time. I know a lot of you have very difficult schedules, whether you're taking, 5 courses, 3 of them are like chemistry or something scary like that. You might have kids that you have to manage, you might have a job, or you might have all of those things, right? What you need to do is put in your schedule a block of time, ideally an hour a day, if not more, where you do nothing but study genetics, right? This is really hard, and I'm very aware that we're all human. I'm human. There are a lot of things that I really don't want to do, including writing my 4th year review right now, which is like about as little fun as I can imagine. Right? I'd rather go, chop up 10 pounds of onions instead. But it's something that I have to do to, keep my job, which is a pretty useful thing. And what you need to do is get used to putting a block of time away where you do nothing but genetics, because there'll always be something else more pressing that you need to do, right? It might be, I'm not saying picking kids up for school, because, you should do that anyway, right? You shouldn't just leave them there to study genetics. But, there's essays, there's other exams to do, there's, this, that, and the other, right? So if you just block away this hour or so a day, then at the very least, you'll always be doing that, right? Just getting into the habit of it. Because this is not a course that you will succeed at if you study only for a couple of days, or even just a day, or even just a couple of hours. I know I've had people do that before an exam. You will not succeed, right? And that's not me being mean, and I'm not trying to hurt your feelings or anything. It's just essentially saying it how it is. This is a course, and biology is a degree, right? As a subject that you get good at by doing it a lot, right? The reason why I know all of this stuff is that I've been doing this for 20 odd years, right? I've been teaching this course for, actually, how long have I been teaching this? Over a year, maybe 2 years if you count where I've taught it elsewhere. I've been doing molecular genetics for almost as long as I can remember, right? So this is just, I'm good at it, not because I'm a genius, but because I've done it a lot, right? And so you don't have to be a genius to be successful at this course. You just have to work hard at it and do so regularly, right? That is the key. And really, you cannot cram for this at the last minute, right? It might be tempting, but you will not be successful if you do. Some of the stuff you'll be good at, right? There are definitely aspects to it which benefit from that, but there are plenty that don't, right? So, now what else did I want to talk about? Okay, I tend to ramble a little, but you'll have to excuse me. I started going on tangents. Like, don't get me started on giant pandas. That's one of my classic, don't touch that subject kind of deals. So essentially I'm not going to talk about lab at all. So essentially the lab is the second, one of the reliable ways of being successful at this course. Do all your homeworks, do everything, and do it well in your lab. Your lab is 25% of your course grade, and it is perfectly possible to get 90% or better in the lab, right? Just by making sure you do your stuff every week that you're supposed to, and you don't skip things, right? So those two things are very reliable ways of getting a good grade. And essentially that's what 45% of your overall grade. So a bit of basic math, that means you got to get, what's that? 25 out of 55, which is, oh, I really suck at math. Like 60% in your exams, which is achievable, right? To get a C. Now, that seems like a pretty, I'm not trying to tell you not to study for your exams because that would be stupid. But what I'm telling you is that if you do all these other things that take some of the pressure off those exams, and those exams will be hard, right? There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So essentially, we're going to be doing this all online, which is a little bit weird. It's basically me talking to a picture of myself just about there on my computer for an hour a day, 3 times a week. But the hope is that you're going to have all of the materials and help that you need to be successful, right? So there's lots of different ways to study. Talk about a few of them in a little bit. But I've tried to give you lots of different ways that you can access the material. So let's go back to, this is also where the exams will be placed. So they're going to be online exams. Actually, I can't tell you about that now, I guess. There'll be online exams. You'll have an hour and 15 minutes to do them. They will, just trying to think, they're not, they auto submit after an hour and 15, unless you have accommodations by DSS, but they're not forced completion, right? So because students may have issues with their internet or the like. One thing about the exams, right? So this is scary chi-squared stuff, right? This is stuff up here for one of the exams. I try and be pretty open about what's going to be in the exams. I don't hide stuff from you. Oh, here's also a bunch of stuff that you should know by the end of the course. So the exams are all going to be multiple choice, multiple answer. They're going to be open book, right? So I don't try and stop you from looking up stuff on the internet and things like that, right? Because it seems like a fruitless task. However, open book exams also come with them with like an extra burden of difficulty for 2 reasons. Sorry, there's my webcam. One of them is that you have all the information there potentially, right? So I should feel fairly happy going for some of the details and that stuff, right? How many base pairs are wrapped around a nucleosome or a core particle, right? You shouldn't be surprised to see a fair number of fact-based recall questions, right? But also because it's open book and because it's online and I've got no way of making sure that you're doing what you should be doing and not doing things that you shouldn't be, they're also structured in a way to make cheating difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. And the way that's done is that you can only do one question at a time. And once it's done, it's gone. So with, paper-based exams, in-person exams, I always encourage students to, do the easier questions first, get them out of the way, forget about that stuff, and then move on to the hard ones. Like read the whole exam first. You can't do that with these online exams, right? You can't skip a question and then go back to it later, because once you move on from a question, it's gone, right? Which is unfortunate. It's not ideal, but it's necessary. The other thing is that the questions are randomized. So every one of you will have the questions appear in different order. And sometimes even the answers are in a different order, right? Obviously the same ones are going to be right for all of you, but how they're presented are going to be different as well. Now, the plus side is that wherever there are multiple, what are they called? Multiple answer questions, where you have like pick all that apply, which is usually how I signal them. You get partial credit if you get some of them right. You also get partial negative credit if you just put down all of them, right? So don't do that unless you think that all of them are correct. So those are the kind of like the wrinkles around doing it online. The plus side is you have the whole day to do so, right? So the exams will open at the beginning of class in the morning, whatever date the first one is. Where are we at? 16th of September, for example. What's that? 3 weeks time, give or take. Though, and then you'll have until the end of the 16th of December to take it, right? So if you have, you know, a work shift come up, or, you know, you want to spend that day studying for the exam, you can take it at the end of the day. Just make sure you give yourself enough time to do so before midnight. Otherwise, it will just cut off. Those exams will also be a mix of like recall, fact-based questions. You know, how many chromosomes does C. elegans have? 6. You know, what sex determination scheme do chickens have? You know, it's ZZ, ZW, right? Just basic, like, oh yeah, that's what it is, type questions. That will be, you know, maybe 50% of the exam will be that type of stuff. That stuff you should be able to do even if you don't know the stuff with like some decent Google foo, right? You may not have the time to do all of that because again, these are time limited. But that's just basic recall stuff. The rest of it is going to be split between things which you need to understand the question or the material, right? Or maybe even for the harder ones, either do some kind of calculations like a chi-squared test, or make some series of logical leaps between things which I provide you, the question and the answer, right? So those are the harder questions. Those are the ones which you will not get from cramming this material the day before the exam, right? You need to understand this material to be successful in this course, right? And really, especially to get the, you know, the B's and the A's. It's not enough just to be able to recall stuff because, I mean, as I said, my memory is shockingly bad, right? If I forget stuff, I just look it up on Google. You know, that's what it's there for, right? But it's the understanding that really matters, and that's what I want to make sure you get. Because if you're going on to do a graduate program, a master's or a PhD, going on to do an, you know, a health careers type program, working in a lab somewhere, being a research technician, whatever, right? Any kind of career that will use this degree, you need to be able to understand what you're working with, right? You're not going to be automatons that can basically just recall information. It's not going to help you, right? So we really need, as a biology faculty, right, you know, or a university even, to make sure that you learn how to put different things together and come up with something novel, because that's really what will stand you in good stead when you go on to doing whatever it is you use this degree for. And hopefully that's, I mean, if it's nice to just stick it up on the wall, I guess. My degrees are in a folder upstairs somewhere. But that's not the main use for it, right? The main use is kind of preparing you for what you're going to do next. And those are the questions that typically trip people up. Not intentionally, it's very much not the case. But those are the harder questions, and those are the ones that you'll not be able to just scan through your notes and find the answer to. Right, so that's kind of exams. And again, I don't want to scare you about this stuff because I want you to enjoy this course, right? I love genetics. I think it's fabulous. It's so interesting. Every single aspect of it really is cool. But I do want you to be successful at this course and get the grade that you need so you can move on and do those other higher, more, I wouldn't say more interesting, more varied, right, courses that you'll take for the rest of your degree, right? And so to do that, you need to be successful at this course as well. So that's really kind of what the general course is made up of, right? Lab, homeworks, and 4 exams. Each exam, before I forget, is purely on the material between it and the exam before it, or the start of the course, right? So exam 1 is only on all of this stuff up here. Mendelian inheritance, some math, cell division, stuff like that, right? Exam 2 is only non-Mendelian inheritance linkage, which is a doozy, right? And DNA replication, right? They're not explicitly cumulative, even, well, all the way down here in December 2nd, seems like a long time away, right? Even the final is not a cumulative final. It's simply the 4th exam in the series. It's called the final because it's the last one, not because it's some kind of, massive assessment of your understanding. It's simply everything from here to here. Get off, right? So what do you get to help you do this? Well, obviously you get me, which is hopefully a good thing. But also we have a whole bunch of different ways of accessing the material. Oh, by the way, if you haven't found it already, come on. This is where you'll find that schedule that I keep pointing to. I can't remember I can remember what I'm teaching from day to day, but sometimes I get confused because I have 2 different courses. But here's where you find the schedule, right? Lots of important dates in there. Syllabus, general blurb about stuff, as well as some info about grading things. Readings, right? So all of you by now should have had an email from someone or other about your textbook if you're enrolled in Jaguar Day 1. I don't know much about Jaguar Day 1. I'm really sorry. This was something that was largely dumped on the faculty without us really being told what was happening. So if you want to know some of the pros and cons, this is a good synopsis of the Jaguar Day 1 program. And it also has a couple of emails that you can use to contact people if your textbook, whatever form it's supposed to be in, has not arrived. So I'm usually fairly ambivalent about textbooks because I don't use them very much to learn things. I'm not a very linear learner. We'll get to that in a bit. And also they're bloody heavy. So this is the one that we're using. It's a good source of information written by very smart people who have obviously more time than I do, or more willingness to write stuff than I do. But one of the best things about textbooks, let's find a good example. Where's linkage? This is something that should, here we go, rightly scare the willies out of you, right? Which is why we'll be spending such a bunch of time on it. The very most useful thing, in my opinion, about textbooks is problem sets, right? So at the end of every chapter, you'll see work through problem sets that will help you practice either the material itself or the calculations or whatever that you'll be doing, right? So add that to your weekly list of things that you should do. For whatever we're studying, go through at least a few of these, right? You get good at stuff by doing it a lot. Again, your professors typically, if they've been here and doing it for a while, are good at teaching the courses they teach because they've taught them a lot of times, right? We essentially study for this material like twice a semester for years. The guy who taught genetics before me taught nothing but genetics for 4 years. He's really good at teaching genetics, right? Better than I am. I'm hoping to be as good as he is over time, but I'm starting out, right? So do these problem sets. That's one of the most valuable things about the textbook, in my opinion. Some people also get a lot of mileage out of it in terms of learning as well, and that's totally awesome too. It's just that I tend to open a textbook, look at some of the pictures, and then I fall asleep. I tend not to do well at just sitting and reading books like that. I really like reading other books, textbook not so much. Anyway, so here are some list of readings for each of the different topics that we'll be covering, right? And so essentially what I suggest, oh, hang on, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit right now. Let's go over here for a second before I suggest anything. This is where you'll find a bunch of other stuff in the course content section. So here are all of the PowerPoints that we'll be basing this course off of, right? So essentially, I mean, it's not all of the material. I'd call this the skeleton of the course, right? So this is the bones. Essentially, what I will do when we talk about this stuff together is flesh it out more, right? So these are all of the PowerPoints. PowerPoints have a lot of information in them. Some of them are big, right? So this is a 32 slide PowerPoint on eukaryotic gene expression, right? It goes all the way from pretty pictures. That's a very nice. That's a confocal picture actually, using a laser scanning microscope. All the way from overview stuff like this to kind of nitty gritty detail about what particular aspect we're studying at the time, right? So this is what the course is based off of, but it is not the whole course, right? This plus the audio recordings, right, which are essentially me doing an impression of David Attenborough. I wish. Talking about going through these PowerPoint slide by slide, right? So if you want a kind of a helping hand interpreting them when I'm not around, you have audio recordings and they've got the same titles for all of those PowerPoints. That may be useful, may not be useful. If it is, awesome. If it's not, then that's not a big deal either. Right. During class, not always, quite enough, but sometimes I'll use a whiteboard. That's why I was farting around with the whiteboard on Zoom. Just want to see if I can actually use it. And any picture, any kind of drawings that we take, I do it more for stuff later on in the course. And the chat sessions, right? So as you can see, the chat session, oh bloody hell, chat sessions disappeared. There we go, back again. Stick that up there before I forget. Those get posted to this folder, right? So you have a copy of those pictures. You have a copy of any questions that were asked during class. Hopefully there'll be many, right? This is very much ask as many questions as you can think of kind of class, in my opinion. And then this, right, what we're doing right now. So right now we're doing like the boring humdrum stuff of talking about what the course is going to be like and things like that, which is not super interesting, even though it's really important. But when we get started proper next week, I'll actually be using these PowerPoints and kind of riffing off them to kind of hit the main points, right? What are the things that I really want you to get? What's the most important stuff? And essentially these Zoom sessions are intended to be a mix of a little bit of lecture and some office hours and some kind of basically opportunity for you to ask questions, right? So I will endeavor, most times I manage, to spend at least 10 minutes at the beginning of every one of these Zoom sessions going over stuff or any questions that people have from the previous class, right? Part of that kind of iterative process of learning, right? Because you cannot expect to get all of this first time. No one does. I don't, right? Which is, again, why I get better at teaching courses the more I teach them. So however you're going to structure your learning, there needs to be a time where you're going to be asking questions about stuff which you don't understand, which will be I won't say a significant fraction because I don't know, right? It will be part of what you have studied. There'll be stuff that you do understand and there'll be stuff that you don't, right? And so ask questions about the stuff you don't. These, recordings essentially then get posted up onto, there we go, my YouTube channel, which is kind of weird. I feel like all modern and everything. This is me. I'm called The Wandering Professor. How did I get back to this? I could really do with having one of my daughters kind of stand. Oh, I don't want to press that. Damn it. Crap. Oh, here we go. I feel like my dad, like watching him use the computer while I Skype it with him. Anyway, so this is where, I mean, it's just basically like a talking head, right? You actually, if you, oh, we don't have channels, we have playlists. All right, this is where all of the courses that I teach are posted up. So you could even look at the ones for prior courses if you wish. You learn some astrobiology, which is super fun. And you can also see how my beard has grown over the quarantine period as well, which is kind of fun. I should do like some kind of collage of snapshots or something. But anyway, they all get posted up here, right? So this is the, essentially, oh, no, don't do that. I don't want to watch what I see. I'm not very technologically savvy, unfortunately. But anyway, these are all of the lectures from my summer genetics course, for example, and also all of the labs as well. And we'll get to that when we talk about lab. So these are there for you to go back to if you want to clarify a point, if you feel you missed something. Also for people that, for whatever reason, are unable to make that particular lecture, it's there, right? So all of those together hopefully will give you what you need. So what I would suggest, pardon me, or at least most of what you need, is before every class, right? And you do have to be pretty diligent about it. Where the hell's Blackboard gone again? Ooh, there we go. I think that's one. I need a bigger screen. Before every class, go find the PowerPoint. Read it, go through it. If you need to, listen to the audio recordings. You can put it on while you go to sleep, or you could put it on and then you'll go to sleep. Two options, I guess. But go through whatever we're going to be studying beforehand, right? That will give you a little bit of a heads up for the language, right? So you know what the hell I'm talking about. It'll also give you an overview of what we're going to be studying. It might even pose some questions as, you know, what are you talking about, right? I don't understand, right? And then when in class, you know, you're going to be able to take notes. You'll have the Zoom recording. You'll be able to ask better questions because you'll already understand some of the material. So you'll understand what you don't know, right? Which is the difficult bit. And you'll be able to either shout out questions. So you don't have to raise a hand or kind of like into your mic to ask a question. Just say, excuse me, what did you mean by dominant epistasis, right? I don't understand that whatsoever. So, cool question. Yay. Students are present. They're not just like, you know, sleeping behind their screens or something, right? So that'll allow me to go into it, think about a different way of talking about that particular problem and explain that. If you wish, you can post up on, some people like chat more for some reason. I don't know why, whatever reason. Post your question up on chat. That will be part of the record. Other people see it. Some other students might actually be able to help you before I get to you, which is pretty cool, right? If you feel a little bit embarrassed about asking a question, or you need to ask me about something which you don't want the rest of the class to know, you know, you've got a doctor's appointment or something like that, then just message me privately. I'm in here somewhere. I don't know. Perhaps I can't message myself. Maybe you'll see that rather than me. Just message me privately and I will remove those private messages before I post this chat up to Blackboard after class, right? So if you want to know the best predictor of the students that do well in my classes, they're the students that ask questions. Now, partly that may be because those students are more likely to ask questions, they're good students more likely to ask questions, but also I hope the students that ask questions and understand the material will do better in the exams as well, right? So ask questions. I'm not particularly scary, even though people think my beard is somewhat traumatizing. I don't know why. I think it's lovely. I'm not a very scary person, and I love having questions, right? I really do. Gives me time to kind of break my train of thought and think about something in a different way, right? And also, I often learn stuff in the process too, so it's a boon for me as well, right? Just from having to think about things in a different way. So once we've had, you know, this Zoom session, there'll probably still be stuff that you still don't understand, right? Make a note of it, make a list of it. Maybe you want to go and look in your textbook, right? And see if you can find some answers there, right? This is a very good textbook. As I said, written by smart people. And they've almost certainly thought of or come across those questions before. So you'll probably find the answer in there. If you're more like me, and you don't do as well with textbooks, I like going on Alice in Wonderland kind of meanders through the internet, right? So good example of what I did last week. I can't remember why. For example, I was just trying to remember, because I know there are different types of epistasis, and I can remember how they do different things. I just couldn't remember what they were called, right? So I don't know. I wander around and I look at stuff like this. I don't actually tend to watch many videos. I don't really have the patience to watch videos, to be honest. But I do tool around on Wikipedia a lot. I like looking at Nature Citables, has a lot of real cool stuff too. Pardon me. Chickens, always good. So basically, I kind of scroll through here and go, oh, right. Yeah, this is dominant epistasis. That has a, what's that, a 9:7 ratio, right? Yeah, 9:7. Recessive homeostasis has a, oh, did I get that right? Yeah, I think so. I better stop talking because there are lots of different types of epistasis. I don't want to confuse you or myself, right? So there's always stuff that I don't kind of fully understand because I don't think about it in that particular way. So I often come and teach myself, right? So there's something that I don't understand. I'll go and read about it until I do. And then I might forget a little bit, and then I'll go back and I'll look at it again. And things like so on, this kind of stuff, essentially. Is this? Oh no, 9:7 is, actually we can have a little look at it. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, 9:7 is recessive homeostasis. My apologies. Right, not homeostasis, epistasis. Get words confused sometimes. So again, it's just a good example of how I need to go back and double check some stuff every so often as well. But this is what I tend to do when I'm learning about a particular subject. Some stuff I just know off the top of my head. Other things I need to go and have a little bit of a digger deep into it. Sometimes there are things that I think I know, and then I get asked a really good question in class. I'm like, oh, maybe I don't know that as well as I should do. And so then I'll spend some time digging deeper into it so I can understand it more fully, right? Wikipedia is a great place to start for stuff like this. But anyway, what you should be doing is going to figure out what things you don't know. It's a hard job. But then by figuring out what you don't know, great example, then you learn it and then you know it, right? And so you fill that gap in. And so you should be able to go back to, get off of it. Zoom really annoys me sometimes. There we go. You should be able to go back and look at this. Oh, no, not there. Forget where I put things sometimes. These master learning goals and be able to go, yeah, I can totally explain that. Oh, hello, Luna. It's my teenage dog that doesn't like getting out of bed until Oh, oh, sorry, she's going to lick her bits. Luna, have some manners. There you go. She's really a pretty dog. There you go. Then after getting out of my daughter's bed, where she sleeps until pretty about 10 o'clock every morning, she then goes and sits on the couch. That's pretty much her daily scheme of things. Anyway, so she'll be making an appearance every so often. Maybe one of my cats will. She comes and screams at me every so often. And if you have pets of your own, please feel free to share them too. I love seeing them. So anyway, it's going to be tough doing this online. It actually takes, I think, in many ways, more diligence and effort to make sure you keep to a schedule, because there's not the requirement to show up to class. But to be honest, in any of these courses from now onwards, or even just from when you got here in the first place, just showing up to class is not going to get you where you want to go, right? You really, really need to make sure you do, I think it's the average guide is 3 hours per scheduled credit hour per week. So for this course, you're going to be doing 3 hours, give or take, of lecture time by what we're doing now. So really, you should be doing, what's that, 3 times 3? Yeah, 9. See, I told you math wasn't my strong suit. 9 hours a week on top of that in order to be successful. That's how long it takes to go through all of this material, work through it, do your own research and studying, do the homeworks, do the preparation for your exams. Make sure you know what these words are that we're using, right? You have to be able to speak the lingo to be able to get on in biology, essentially, right? So it takes a lot of organization and really, really just sticking to it, right? Because it's going to get hard, probably around the middle of the semester. You're going to be tired. You know, like the holidays on either side are going to appear, you know, pretty far apart. And it's going to be tough to keep up with it. But really, really, if you can kind of carve out this routine of coming to these Zoom lectures, or if you can't, at least making sure you watch them on YouTube afterwards. You know, looking through the PowerPoints ahead of time, maybe listening to me go through the PowerPoints. You can even put it on your, I don't know, phone or whatever, as you're driving home from work. Or maybe as you're driving to work, you know, I don't know, whatever. Something like that. And make sure you actually go through the material looking for stuff that you don't know. Don't just write out the same material again, because even though that's not a bad thing to do, it's not the most successful or more efficient way of learning material, right? You've really got to pound it in a different direction from what it went in originally, right? And so we're going to keep doing that, and I'll try and do that as much as possible at the beginning of every class, so that you can kind of really just constantly be studying this. Essentially, you're going to start studying for your first exam on Monday, right? That's really when you're going to start studying for, and you're going to start studying for exam 4 as soon as you've had exam 3, right? It's a constant process, and really that, as well as obviously the night before, you're like, oh shit, I can't remember this stuff, right? But it's got to be a continuous process, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that's how I'll get as many as you as possible through this course with a C or a better, right? Because that's really my aim. My aim is not to fail students. My aim is to get students through so that you're prepared for your next course in line. And that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to try and do my best to keep to time, because I know you've probably got classes after this. I need to make myself a coffee because I've got a meeting after this. I will post this Zoom video on YouTube, and I'll send you the link to the playlist. I haven't created this class playlist yet, but I'll do that as I post that up. I'm not going to post the chat session because there's not really anything in there that's especially needed by anybody. Please do figure out what you're doing for lab. Anyone that's having me for lab, please make sure that you either find yourself a lab partner by the beginning of next week, or I'll find one for you. I don't mind, but if you want to choose, then please make your choice. And then we'll talk about, I'll be in touch at the beginning of next week for lab stuff, as well as obviously really beginning the course next Monday. And if you have any questions, just flick me an email. I'll, unless it's the weekend and I'm off doing other things, I'll typically get back to you the same day. That's my usual aim, my customer service pledge, I guess. So yeah, have a fabulous weekend, or the rest of your day at least, and I will see you on Monday.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.